Great, okay. All right, so good morning everyone. Welcome to the Road Safety and Active Transportation discussion. I want to begin this morning's discussion with the land acknowledgement and invite Councillor Chambers to give the land acknowledgement.
Good morning. I want to acknowledge that we are gathered here on Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dene, and Dakota peoples, the birthplace of the Red River Métis Nation. The water that we drink is sourced from Shoal Lake 40, located in Treaty 3 territory. Thank you.
Okay, how do I turn the slides? Page down, okay. All right, so I want to take care of some housekeeping. First of all, the washrooms are out the door and to the right. That's where the washrooms are. We won't be taking a break. We have lots to cover, so you're free to kind of come and go. I think we've got coffee and water at the back there still. And my name is Janicelukes. I'm the City Councillor for the Waverley West Ward, and I'm Chair of the Public Works Committee. So, for the purposes of clarity, this event today is termed a councillor-hosted event. Councillors, if they so choose, can host an event on any topic they feel relevant and invite whoever they wish. Today, I'm hosting this event with my colleagues on the Public Works Committee, and I've invited the public service to come. I and many councillors have hosted parks events, development events, finance budget events, safety events, and many kinds of years. Many of you may know that over the years I've hosted a lot of events focused on active transportation. I did a series of events at the Forks, multiple ward-focused transportation events, multiple road safety events, and multiple snow and ice removal events. When an event is hosted, organized, and presented by a councillor, it's deemed a political event and does not receive the support of city promotion and marketing. Why? It's sort of one of these things that always has been, and to be frank, other than I think Councillor Mays, who's here, where are you, Councillor Mays? Put your hand up, there you are. Other than Councillor Mays, and I've sort of gone at them too, have sort of challenged why we shouldn't have city marketing and promotion. But anyways, most councillors host events that are word specific, and councillors know how to reach out to their audience. Probably because I'm very connected to the citywide active transportation community, I'm able to reach the audience who is interested in the topics I host, like today. So I want to thank all of you for coming. I know we've got folks that are bike advocates here. I know we've got folks that are vehicle advocates. I know we've got folks that are upset about a lot of things. We got a really good mix here, and I think that's positive. And you have the public service, and you have councillors who support active transportation. So I want to give you the agenda here. Let's go to the next one here. I'll go to the next one. There we go. So, I'm going to introduce the Public Works Committee. I'm going to welcome the public service. We're going to have our presentation. It's about 50 slides. It's a good, healthy presentation. All of the information that they will be presenting is an elaboration of what's in the budget books. So this isn't really, it's not a consultation session, it's an information session. I think we're doing incredible work in the city, and we'll get into that, and I wanted to share that incredible work with people who care. And then we'll have a question and answer period. Our Q&A period, because we have so many, our Q&A period will be using technology. Julie, our communication specialist, will fill us in on how we do that later. So first of all, I want to introduce you to the Public Works Committee. Councillor Ross Eadie is on the Public Works Committee. Oh, no, before I get into him, I'll just give you a little briefing. An overview of how the Public Works Committee is formed. I had a question on that. I think it was Patty who had asked me that question. So I thought I'd share it with everyone here. Every October, under the process of the city's governance model, the mayor selects the chairs of each committee. Then, councillors gather and determine amongst themselves who sits on which committee. We have multiple committees at the city. The mayor does not attend a meeting where the councillors meet to pick who sits on the committees. Often, councillors discuss with their colleagues which committees they want to sit on, and if there are multiple councillors who want to sit on one particular committee, then there's a vote. Then, in November, a special council meeting is held where the committees are presented and voted on. And we do that at City Hall, it's in the chamber, and then we proceed with the year. Now I'd like to introduce the 2024-2025 Public Works Committee. This may change this coming November, but for now, from last November to this November, this is the committee. Councillor Eadie from the Minarski Board, who could not be here today as he's organizing many spring cleanups. Councillor Eadie was elected to serve on City Council in 2010. This is the first year Councillor Eadie is sitting on the Public Works Committee. Councillor Eadie, as you know, has been a very passionate advocate for the inner city on many inner city issues. And he's a very passionate advocate for accessibility issues citywide. I had the opportunity to work with him before being elected and continue to on this major gap called the North Winnipeg Parkway at Main and Redwood. Councillor Chambers was elected to serve on City Council in 2018. Councillor Chambers is serving for his 5th year on the Public Works Committee, not consecutive, but since being elected to office. Councillor Chambers is a strong advocate for traffic calming measures and has been focused on St. Mary's, St. Anne's, Highbury, Nova Vista, and Dalhousie. He continues to be supportive of initiatives that promote active transportation while prioritizing safety. Councillor Debbie Sharma, where are you, Councillor Sharma? Put your hand up here. There she is, over there. Councillor Sharma was elected to serve on City Council in 2010. Councillor Sharma has served on the Public Works Committee the entire time she's been on City Council. She is shy to admit this, but I can tell you, we have made excellent progress in the city because of her long-standing support on transportation issues. She has moved mountains to get the North Winnipeg Hydro Corridor underway. I guess I could say she's moved hydro to get the North Winnipeg Hydro Corridor underway. And to ensure active transportation was included in greenfield developments long before we had clear policies on sidewalks and pathways. She's a strong proponent of accessibility and is very involved from that perspective also. I was elected in 2014. Prior to being elected, I was the co-chair of the Red River Floodway Trails Coalition, which lobbied federal and provincial governments to include active transportation into the floodway expansion. Along with Julian. Julian, put your hand up here. You're one of the lifers. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I then became the Winnipeg Trails Coordinator for 10 years prior to being elected, working under the mentorship of Paul Jordan, CEO of the Forks and Rivers West. For those 10 years, the focus of the Winnipeg Trails Association was almost solely focused on securing funding for infrastructure and policy development for active transportation. So a lot of advocacy. I don't think back in the day we could have ever filled a room like this. I think there were, Julian, 5, 6, Mark, Beth, 5, 6, 7 people. So it's incredible to see so many people I don't even know advocating for something that many of us have worked on for many, many years. Back in 2006 or so, the only budget line in the city of Winnipeg was $100,000 for park pathways. In those 10 years, through incredible advocacy with Bike to the Future, now Bike Winnipeg, the Green Action Centre, the Forks, and Rivers West, and some really key councillors. I don't know if any of you remember when Councillor Eadie and, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name, the other councillor that was in the inner city ward, Harvey Smith, were advocating for 30K, if any of you remember that. Long ago, right? Long ago. So, you know what? I'm going to end this and people are going to be rude and interrupt. So, we're either here to listen or we're not. And we can just end it. disrespectful. We were able to secure funding and bills for the pedestrian cycling bridge over 59 Highway, expansion of what was Bishop Brandon Greenway from Sage Creek to Fort White, and funding for the pathway through Assiniboine Forest. The Northeast Pioneers Greenway, the pedestrian bridge over Chief Peguis, the Disraeli Ped Cycle Bridge, the Yellow Ribbon Greenway, AT Incorporated, Stellar AT Incorporated into the transit corridor, and we secured $20 million from the federal Conservatives and much more in 10 years. I was appointed to the chair of Public Works. Let me see here. I was appointed to the chair of Public Works for 2 years by Mayor Brian Bowman, and for another 3 years under Councillor Gillingham. I've been able to work with colleagues to move the dial on many things. I'm very proud to be able to reflect back on that $100,000 budget line up to seeing today's budget for AT. And two of them, and I want to share this with you because you know what? Advocacy comes in all forms. We're motivated for many, many reasons to do advocacy. My motivation, I'll share this personally, my motivation is I had triplet boys. I grew up on a farm north of Winnipeg. I moved into the city, got married, had triplet boys. Not enough safe places for my kids to bike and walk. Also, I'm the oldest of 4 in our family. My dad was killed in a car accident when I was 18. Our lives changed forever. So we all have our reasons for advocating, and we all have different styles of advocating. I think we've really changed the dial on how we move this city forward. 2 of the motions that I was really proud to bring forward, one was to have snow removal removed on all the pathways in Winnipeg. Some of you will remember that that never happened. That didn't occur, but now it does. And the other was the formation of a formalized road safety committee, which we'll hear about more today. Oops, hold on here. I forgot to show these 2 slides. There's Councillor Chambers. I think it was a crosswalk he was opening up. There's Councillor Sharma on the Hydro Corridor Greenway. That was great. We've got more coming on that. That was a really tough one. That was part of the Floodway Coalition, getting that pedestrian bridge over 59 Highway. Imagine that. That was very difficult. Winding up the intro, I'd like to show you this slide. And you may not be able to see the fine print, but you can see the lines, okay? So I'll tell you about it. This is based on the 2021 Stats Canada data. This shows how people travel in the city of Winnipeg. It's an incredible slide as it speaks to so much. The blue line, it's broken down by wards, and I'll be posting this on my website after the event. It's broken down by wards. The blue line is car, truck, or van. Yeah. So you know what? It upsets me when people say we've got a bike lobby. I'd say no, we really don't. We've got a different kind of lobby here. But anyways, that's the mode of transportation. The blue line is by car, truck, or van, and then the orange line is public transit, then we've got walk, bicycle, and other method. Bottom line is, this slide speaks to the need, to me, it speaks to the need to advocate for mode shift, to protect our environment, our roads, and to protect the vulnerable road user. And this is why we're here today, to learn more about what the city is doing to support mode shift and to protect the vulnerable road user. So with that, I'll invite Julie up now to introduce the public service who is working on protecting road safety and delivering on road safety. So these are people who have worked long and hard to make our city better. If you want to yell at anyone, you can yell at the councillors, because we're the ones that sit there. There's one pie of budget, and we all have to work together to develop our city in such a manner that we create some form of balance. Is there balance right now? No, there's not a balance. Are we working towards a balance? We absolutely are. One of the biggest challenges that we have is we don't have freeways in our city. And this is something I didn't write into here, but I just want to mention it before Julie comes on board. We are a multimodal global transportation hub. I don't know if you've heard of Centerport. If you haven't heard of Centerport, you better read up on it. We don't have freeways. We can't airlift everything into our city. We have to use roads to deliver goods. We're not delivering goods on bikes. We're not delivering goods in small trucks. Well, we are, I guess we are. But we have to recognize that for our economy, so that we can make money to build stuff, we need to move goods. And that we are a global multimodal destination. So it's about sharing, it's about compromising. We have come a very, very long way, which we'll hear about today. Absolutely, we have a long way to go, but we will not get there by people negatively advocating. We have to be positive, we have to work together. So people are dying in vehicles, people are dying walking. We're gonna see how many people are dying up here. We know that. What I'd like to see people doing is advocating the federal government and the provincial government for a different funding model. Because the bottom line is, the funding model that the city operates under is outdated and antiquated. It's all about, the only revenue model the cities have really are raising taxes or charging fees. If we had the funding model that the United States has, where the federal government funds transportation, we'd be living in a different world. But we're not. So if you want to yell and you want to fight with someone, go after the federal government, go after the provincial government. If you vote, it's your job. If you don't vote, then you can't speak. Okay, so there's people here that would like to listen to this. I am advocating, councillors advocate, we all advocate. So I want this to be respectful when we have the public service up here, and if it's not, I'll just shut it down and that's it. I don't have to do these events. I do these events to help you do better advocacy. So with that note, Julie.
Thank you. I will just say that there are a lot of children in here, so if you can watch the language that you're using if you are yelling, that would be super. Amanda, where is the other slides? Right here. We're balancing between two presentations. So as Councillor Lukes said, I'm Julie Dooley. I work in communications in the Public Works Department in the Director's Office, and I am going to moderate the Q&A when the time comes. A note on that, we have posters up with QR codes that you can enter questions. They're all coming to me here. And if you don't want to use technology, there's some paper in a box to write your questions in out here as well. So we will move on and meet the staff who's here. So our senior staff that we have here is David Patman, our Manager of Transportation. You can see a bit of David's background there. I'm not going to read through every line, but he is a civil engineer. Michelle Staten, who's our Project Management Engineer in our Engineering Division. Michelle's here to answer any background questions on road renewals, road funding, construction projects, that aspect of things. We also have our Active Transportation Branch, which is Chris Baker, our Senior Active Transportation Planner. Chris has some friends here. And Eric Dixon, our Livable Streets Specialist. We also have our new road safety team here, the Road Safety Branch. We have Amanda Bushka, who's our Road Safety Management Engineer. And Danae Penner, who's our Road Safety Outreach Coordinator. Not with us today is Steve Wood, who's the newest member of our Road Safety Branch, and I will say this branch was newly formed as a result of the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan, and these folks are very excited to make more change for road safety in Winnipeg. So with that, I will pass it along to Amanda, who will tell us all about the Road Safety Branch.
Okay, good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to introduce our team in the Road Safety Branch. As Julie mentioned, we're a relatively new team, and so it's really exciting to get an opportunity to share a little bit about what we're working on. So as Julie mentioned, my name is Amanda Pushka. I'm a road safety engineer in the branch. I'm joined today by Danae Penner. We're two of a small but mighty team of 3 in road safety, and we're really dedicated towards helping improve safety in the city of Winnipeg. I wanted to start by highlighting the timeline of how we really got to where we are and where we're looking to go in the next few years. So a lot of the work in road safety in the city of Winnipeg started in 2019 through the research and development of a road safety strategy. Now I see many of you have these today. We're going to talk a little bit about what that strategy entails in the presentation today. But the work was done in 2019. And that was looking back on the last several years of collision data across the entire city of Winnipeg. There was a large number of public consultations that were held to hear from Winnipeggers like yourself about how they perceive safety to be in the city of Winnipeg. In 2022, this was when a lot of stuff started to happen in road safety. So council voted to adopt the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. This was an exciting milestone due to champions in the Public Works Committee, some like Councillor Lukes and others who are in the audience today, and it was a really exciting push to put road safety on the map in the city of Winnipeg. In 2023, we started implementation of some of the low-cost action items within the RSAP because we didn't have any dedicated staff at that time. So safety projects have been ongoing through Public Works and in transportation for many years, but at the time we didn't have a dedicated team working to move road safety improvements in the city of Winnipeg. In 2024, this road safety branch was staffed, so Danae and I were hired back in August, so we're still really early on. We haven't even been here an entire year yet, and we're working really hard to move stuff forward in road safety, and we're going to talk about that today. And then finally, into 2025, this year we're starting to implement some of the larger RSAP action items. This is going to be really fun for us, and we're excited to share about that. And then finally, where are we looking towards going in the next few years? So into 2027, we're planning to initiate all of the actions that are outlined in the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan, and then start the development of the next iteration of the RSAP. So take stock of where we are, how our safety is doing, and what things we need to focus on moving into the future. So a bit more about the road safety branch. I've distilled our role down into 4 key items. First and foremost, we are here to implement the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. It's our job to make sure that we are initiating these actions and moving them forward. Secondly, we're here to co-manage the Road Safety Improvement Program budget. I'm going to talk more about what that budget looks like, what's within it today in the presentation, but we manage a portion of that budget to help move forward road safety initiatives. Third, we integrate road safety into all sorts of components of transportation, starting at the policy level, the early stages, all the way through the various design stages on different projects, through to construction and completion. And so we're really trying to embed safety all the way through the design lifespan. It's a really important way of shifting our focus to make sure we're not addressing safety too late in the game. And then finally, we're here to help provide road safety expertise on transportation projects. We answer councillor questions, we answer questions from the public, we help to do internal training on road safety within the public service, and we're here to be the experts as it relates to any sort of transportation project. So as you're aware, we're doing different capital projects in the city of Winnipeg, we're also doing various types of road renewals, and so we're helping to embed safety when we plan those projects. So I want to take a little bit of time to introduce this document. Some of you picked it up. There's a few copies in the door. This is the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. If you didn't have a chance to get a copy, you can go to the URL in the bottom of the corner there, and you can download a copy for yourself. This is the book that really guides a lot of the work that we're doing here in the Road Safety Branch.
There we go. I'm just watching the questions, and I just wanted to let you know that if we're getting duplicate questions, I'm just archiving those that are duplicate. So if you see your question disappear, it's not because we're not answering it, it's just that I've already got it on paper, or it's already been asked on the screen. So don't freak out.
Okay, so I wanted to start by further introducing the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan by establishing our vision. So we believe that there is a transportation system that can exist in the future of Winnipeg where people of all ages and abilities are able to commute from their A to B on our transportation system without experiencing death or serious injury. We believe in Vision Zero. We think there's a long-term place for us in the city of Winnipeg where nobody is killed or severely injured. Take time to get there, and a lot of hard work and effort. So our short-term goal over a 5-year plan that's outlined within the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan is a 20% reduction in fatal and serious injuries over this 5 years. Now you may ask, why 20%? What's that about? We do believe that there is a long-term future, but a lot of the work that we have to do to improve safety in the city of Winnipeg is laying the foundational policy documents so that we can have the policy and planning in place to improve safety moving forward. So this 20% is something that we think is achievable in the next 5 years, that we can really help to initiate progress on road safety. So we do believe that there is that long term, but in this first version over the next 5 years, our short-term goal is a 20% reduction, and we're going to continue to work to improve it.
So 25 years to zero.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the road safety trends. So this map here is showing the fatal and major injury collisions on the y-axis, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about why do we look at fatal and major injury collisions together. Now, when we consider those two events, a severe injury collision can have significant impacts on friends and families and others. We want to make sure that we're tackling both of those together. We don't want anybody to have a life-altering injury as a result of transporting themselves around the transportation system. And if we think about the scenario that leads to a major injury versus fatality, it can be very minor differences that can result in a major injury versus a fatality. It could be the difference of having an aged vehicle that was involved that doesn't have as much protection. It could be somebody going 5 or 10 above the speed limit. It could be a more vulnerable pedestrian, such as an older person or a child. So we want to address both of these together when we tackle our road safety. And so over the 5-year plan, a lot of the work was done in 2019 when we established the RSAP. We looked back at the previous 5 years to see how we're performing in the city of Winnipeg. And you can see those dots represented on the graph here. Over that 5-year period, the average was 177 fatal and serious injury collisions on average each year, and this is simply unacceptable. So when we establish that average line, the yellow line there, we extend that line out horizontally into the future, and that creates our benchmark for where we want to compare our progress to into the future. As I mentioned, the RSAP, we had a plan that over 5 years from the RSAP being adopted in 2022 through to 2027, we wanted to see on average a 20% reduction in fatal and serious injuries happening on our network. Now, from the time the plan was completed in 2019 through to 2022 when the RSAP was approved, we all experienced COVID-19 pandemic. Now, similar to many cities all across Canada, we see a reduction in the number of fatal and major injury collisions that were happening. This was due to changes in the transportation patterns. People were working from home, they weren't driving as much, and as a result, we saw a reduction in the fatal and major injury collisions that were happening on our roadway. Now, to date, the most recent data that we have available from MPI, so this plot is created from data from MPI and the police service. We only have data up to 2022. We're anxiously awaiting what our data looks like in the next year to see what sort of rebound has happened. All across Canada, we've seen an uptick in crashes post-pandemic as people have returned to the office and the commuting patterns have gone back to what they were pre-pandemic. And so we don't have that data yet, and we hope to track that moving forward, and we will track that moving forward. So if we stop where we are now with the data we have, the most recent data, we'd see a 35% reduction from that baseline. But we're trying to maintain that over 5 years and continue to improve safety. Now, if we look at the plot here, it still shows the fatalities and major injuries on the y-axis year over year. I've now broken it down by the mode user type or the road type. So you can see passenger vehicles consist of the blue lines there, a large proportion of the fatal and major injuries that are happening on our network. But there is quite a large number of pedestrians, motorcycles, bicycles, that are also being affected by road-related trauma. Now, if you think back to the slide that Councillor Lukes shares, a lot of people choose to use vehicles as their primary mode of getting around. And when we think about that small percentage, maybe 10% of people who used to use a bike or walk, there's quite a larger amount shown here. And so it's something where we refer to the overrepresentation of pedestrians and cyclists in our fatal and serious injury collisions. It's so important for us to focus on the safety of these vulnerable road users. We understand that the body is only able to withstand a certain amount of kinematic force before injuries are sustained, and that makes people who are walking and biking extra vulnerable. Now, although we look at the fatal and serious injuries combined when looking at our overall progress towards our goal, sometimes it helps to break it down by fatal injuries. And we can see here the breakdown for passenger vehicles and pedestrian and bicycles. The darker blue is for passenger vehicles, the lighter blue is for pedestrians. And on average, over 2015 to 2022, more than half of our fatalities involve somebody who is walking around their bike, against pedestrians and cyclists on our road system. And so what are we going to do about that? The Road Safety Strategic Action Plan outlines a way that we're going to focus on improving the safety of all these different road users. When we did a complete collision analysis across the city, and when we talked to Winnipeggers like yourselves, we started to understand what are the key issues in safety in the city of Winnipeg. And so over the 5-year plan, we identified 5 focus areas that we really wanted to dedicate our attention to improve safety overall in the city. And those 5 focus areas are pedestrians, speed, road safety culture, cyclists, and signalized intersections. So these are the 5 focus areas we're really trying to dedicate our efforts to. When we do the next iteration of the RSAP in the future, those may change, they may stay the same if we haven't moved the needle as much as we really want to. And so within these 5 focus areas, there are 67 specific actions. You can reference them in the guide itself if you want to learn a little bit more. And of these 67 actions, it's our job as a road safety branch to make sure that we are initiating these and actioning them. One quick interruption here. Okay, so we have 67 actions that are within the RSAP. These are particular actions to help to improve safety in those 5 focus areas. So on the screen here, there's a plot. It shows that 51% of the actions have been initiated, and we break it down by short, medium, and long-term actions. Now, when we're looking at a long-term action, that's not the Transportation Master Plan looking way into the future. We're talking within our 5-year RSAP plan. So the long-term actions, they're a lower amounts of completion because these are ones that are meant to be initiated in 2026 and 2027. The short-term and medium ones are more foundational, and we've therefore achieved more of those so far, initiated more of those within the RSAP action plan. So by focusing on the short and medium term, it allows us to build into the longer term ones, which often rely on outcomes that we do in the short and medium term actions. So overall, we're really excited, even though we're a small team of 3, that we've initiated more than half of our actions within the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan, and we're working to delivering those. So I want to talk a little bit about budget and funding. So the funding that we have for road safety in the city of Winnipeg comes from something called the Road Safety Improvement Program. On the slide here, it shows a line which shows our council-approved annual budget in millions of dollars year over year. And so from 2017 to 2025, typically our historical spending in road safety has moved between $1.5 to $2.5 million per year. And I'm going to go into a little bit about how that's broken down. You can see there's a nice peak in 2019. That was when we received a federal gas tax bump, and that funding was actually able to allow us to develop the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan and deliver some of the early projects. And so that was a really great bump to help us to improve safety in the city of Winnipeg. Now, when you can see on the slide here, we get a big ramp up of spending in future years. And so I'd like to break this out into the policy and planning section and into the building section. So right now, we're in a very exciting time with our road safety budget to be able to plan, to create the policy so that we can really start to move forward quicker in the future, as well as planning for where we want to invest our money to be able to improve safety in the city of Winnipeg. Now, coming into 2027, when we get an added budget from a road safety improvement program level, we can really start to act and move and construct things onto the roadway. Now, I just want to break down some of the components that are contained within the Road Safety Improvement Program. So if you are familiar with the 6-year budget that came out, the 2025 to 2030 totals were $36 million dedicated towards the Road Safety Improvement Program. And that's broken down into a variety of different ways. First, just over 10% is dedicated towards pedestrian crossing improvements. These include things like geometric alignment changes. It may include putting in a more active warning for a crossing, such as a rectangular rapid flashing beacon and RRFB, or going into pedestrian corridors and half signals. Whenever we have an active mode that we put in on a roadway, those locations are approved annually by council, and so it is like a council-approved process that allows for us to move forward with those sorts of improvements. Another area we put quite a lot of funding into, about 12% of our road safety improvement program budget, is towards traffic calming. So these are measures meant to help slow vehicles and reduce volumes on residential streets. And that can be through speed bumps or traffic circles, curb extensions, or other sorts of improvements on the roadway. Traffic signals make up about 14% of our overall road safety improvement program funding. And this helps to fund new types of traffic signals. They're quite expensive, and so these locations are approved annually by council. But we also can do improvements like putting in a protected left turn phase, which has great safety outcomes, or putting in advanced warning active flashers. So anything related to traffic signals is contained within this portion of the budget. And then finally, the one I want to focus on the most is the portion of the RCIP that's dedicated toward actions within the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. So this is a budget that the Road Safety Branch is responsible for, and it makes up 21% of the overall budget. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of policy and planning work that has to be done to improve safety in the city of Winnipeg. So there's a lot of the foundational studies and policy development that happens using this budget. Our focus here is on the most dangerous locations, reducing the risk of death and serious injury. And so again, that's the 21% that the Road Safety Branch is maintaining overall from that $36 million of the Road Safety Improvement Program. Now, if you're good with math, you'll notice that those percentages don't add up to 100%. You can go line by line into the budget and notice that there are some additional areas where we put funding. That could be areas like studies, railway safety improvements, roadway safety improvements, etc. So feel free to look at the budget if you want to understand more about how that funding is allocated. But the presentation today is really focused on how we're using the funding for the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. Now, in our time together, I wanted to highlight 5 key projects that we're rolling out as part of 2025 from the Road Safety Branch. We're really excited about these, and we hope that you guys are too. As I mentioned, there were 51% of the actions within the RSAP have been initiated, so that's about 30 different actions that we're actively working on as a Road Safety Branch. So I just wanted to highlight just 5 of them for you today in the time we have together. So first off is network screening. I don't know if anyone remembers going to Chuck E. Cheese or some arcade where you get the whack-a-mole where the mole head pops up and you whack it with a mallet and it comes up somewhere else and you whack it there and you're fighting against these mole heads that are popping up. Now, historically in road safety, we sometimes have treated our network almost like whack-a-mole, where we have a death or serious injury at a certain location and we do a large safety study and funding to correct that. And then 5 blocks away, somebody else is injured or severely or killed on the roadway, and then we're stuck always on our heels trying to react to the different events that happen. Now, as every life is meaningful and every serious injury matters, it can be challenging for us to take a more proactive approach. But the City of Winnipeg, we're dedicating our time now to pivot to something that's more data-based and allowing us to tackle the highest risk intersections in the city and dedicate our funding in the best way possible. And that's through something called network screening. So we take a look at the intersection configurations and details, the traffic volumes and type, and we look for comparisons between similar intersections in the City of Winnipeg. We develop some fancy math in the background to help us understand the relative risk of these intersections across the city. And that allows us to be a lot more proactive and objective about how we select the areas where we're going to complete detailed safety studies and invest for the greatest benefit for all of Winnipeg. So an example here is shown on the map. That shows an example network screening map. We're in the process now of updating that to bring it up to date with our more recent data so that we can start to tackle these locations in the best way possible. Another area that we're focusing on for this year is pedestrian head start signals or leading pedestrian intervals, LPIs. Now, you all made it downtown today, and if you walked or biked or walked from your car, you may have noticed some changes to the signal timing that happened back in March of this year. We were really excited about this. We implemented LPIs at about 83% of all the downtown intersections. For those that aren't familiar what an LPI is, it's a proven, cost-effective way to improve pedestrian safety at intersections. It works like this. So in phase 1, we allow pedestrians only to cross. They get 5 seconds to take multiple steps out into the roadway, while vehicles in the same direction are held back at that red light. Now, once they take a few steps in, it improves the visibility so that in phase 2, when the typical timing plan operates, turning vehicles have a much better sight line to crossing pedestrians and overall improves pedestrian safety. And so we're really excited about the work that was put in to put these in at 91 different locations around downtown. Now, our work here isn't done. We're taking stock about areas where they perform best in the city, in the downtown area, so that we can create a policy to expand it citywide. So we're in the process right now of reviewing the performance and developing a policy moving forward for the rest of the city. The third project I wanted to highlight is related to crosswalk guidelines. So you may be aware that there are multiple different types of crosswalks that we have in the city of Winnipeg. Some are as simple as a pedestrian sign with maybe some pavement markings. Other of them look like on the screen here where it shows a pedestrian corridor, so there's flashing beacons overhead and also low-mounted flashers on the side. It may look like a full half signal that allows for pedestrian to cross. And so the way that we choose the type of crosswalk type for a location is based on national guidance. And that guidance allows us to look at the number of vehicles and how exposed the crossing is and a number of different factors to select which is the most appropriate treatment to install at a particular location. Now we're currently doing a study right now to make sure we're calibrating these national guidelines to a Winnipeg condition. Knowing that Winnipeg is unique compared to other cities across Canada, and making sure that we are installing the most appropriate crosswalk treatment in the various locations. So we're updating that criteria right now through a detailed research project. The fourth project I wanted to highlight was the Watch Your Speed program. So many of you have seen these speed feedback signs on a roadway. An image is shown here where there is a dynamic response of what your current speed is when you're going through a particular location. MPI has done a large pilot of these in the city of Winnipeg as well as across the province, and they're a way to give feedback to drivers on how fast they're going. Now, driving is a very complex task, and we kind of underestimate how complex it can be. And so if you're changing the radio or you have kids in the back seat, it's easy to lose track of the speed you're traveling. And so these serve as a reminder to drivers to check their speed and make sure they're going the appropriate speed limit. And so right now we're testing some additional locations around the city of Winnipeg, some in reduced speed zones and other areas where drivers are often found to go over the limit, to figure out where they work best. And if the pilot is successful at really helping to drive down vehicle speeds in the area, we're looking at potentially expanding that program citywide into all the different wards across the city. So we're still in the selection period of identifying which locations will receive these treatments. We're putting in 6 new ones this summer at some point, but once we identify locations, we will be able to pilot them in different conditions. And then finally, this is a project that we're really excited about in the road safety branch. It's related to traffic calming quick builds, or traffic calming curbs, TC curbs as we call them. So these curbs are a sexy big yellow concrete block that has some signs on them. They're relatively simple, but they're very effective at helping to reduce vehicle speeds and protect pedestrians and cyclists at different locations. And I'm going to show some examples of how they can be applied in the city of Winnipeg. We're currently planning to pilot more than 15 locations across the city. We're in the final identification phase of figuring out where those curbs are going to be placed sometime this summer. The reason we're piloting them here in the city of Winnipeg, even though they're used all across Canada, is that we're all aware of how tough our winters can be, and we want to make sure that we can work closely with the snow maintenance teams and snow clearing to ensure the longevity of these curbs all seasons of the year. And so there's a couple different ways we can apply these to help improve safety. One example is through median refuge or a pedestrian island. So you can see in the image on the left-hand side, there are people crossing the road, and the curbs are placed in the middle line of the roadway cross-section. So from a pedestrian perspective, this allows you to do a 2-stage crossing. So you can look one way, get to the middle, have some level of protection, look the other way and finish your crossing. And so it separates out the exposed length that a pedestrian has to cross at one time. But the real benefit here is for the vehicle perspective. So as a vehicle is approaching that treatment, they have maybe a 10-meter wide cross-section and an open lane, and all of a sudden they're channeled into a 3.5 meter lane width as they approach the intersection. So that constraint really helps to control vehicle speeds at the location where a pedestrian may be crossing. And so it's a two-pronged approach to really improve safety at a crosswalk location with a very relatively low-cost treatment. And another way we can apply these traffic calming curbs is something called a curb extension. So it's in the name. It's essentially using the curbs to extend out the existing curb line, further constrain vehicle travel, and help to improve safety. And so in the top left, you can see a photo from Edmonton where there's a crosswalk that happens at the mid-block, and TC curbs are used to push out the curb, again, causing a throat constriction for drivers to go a bit slower, reducing the exposed length for pedestrians, and improving safety overall. Now we can also use it as shown in the top right image in Calgary at an intersection where maybe we have quite a large radius and vehicles can turn at a high speed. We can, in a quick way, reduce the curb radius and allow vehicles to turn a little bit slower and protect pedestrians a bit more. So these are a couple different ways that we can quickly drop in some treatments to improve safety for pedestrians in the city of Winnipeg. And so with that, I really wanted to highlight how active transportation, road safety are so aligned. Pedestrians and cyclists are a huge focus of ours within the Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. And we worked very closely with the active transportation branch to try to provide dedicated bike infrastructure and walking infrastructure to improve safety overall. And so we work very close together. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Chris and allow him to share a little bit about what we're up to in active transportation.
Thanks, Amanda. So that was a lot of detail there, and we're about to do it all again related to active transportation. Again, my name is Chris, and I'm here with Eric. We're the two members of the active transportation branch in Public Works in the City of Winnipeg. So we'll start with just a couple slides about what we do, our sort of scope of work, our purview. To sum it all up, we implement the pedestrian and cycling strategies. That's our policy that guides all of our work, and we'll talk a bit about that current edition and then the upcoming update. We manage a budget called the Pedestrian and Cycling Program, so that's the dedicated active transportation fund, but that's not the only way Eadie is funded, and we'll talk about that. We project manage internal projects, internal studies or internal sort of smaller projects that we do, and we're doing a lot more of those lately. And then we also project manage external, we call them walk bike studies, where we hire a consultant to help support that study. We coordinate with the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. We work with them and bounce ideas off them and get feedback, and sort of helps us connect to this community. We also liaise with stakeholders in a variety of ways. We support our communications staff. We respond to a lot of the public and councillor inquiries, and from time to time do media. We provide active transportation guidance and expertise on all transportation projects. So some projects are more, it's a bridge project, or maybe it's a more car-oriented project that has a smaller active transportation component. We still sit on those steering committees or support the project manager, providing subject matter experts on active transportation. We review land development applications and make recommendations to council as part of that applicant's approval to include active transportation infrastructure. These are normally larger suburban developments where we again provide some guidance on the AT network for that development. We write admin reports and respond to political motions to our Standing Policy Committee of Public Works. And we administer grant programs. Again, through that budget, we give out some grants, and we're responsible for seeking out and applying for and managing grant opportunities that come about. Similar to road safety, we have a timeline. I'm only going to go back 20 years. I know there's been stuff before this, but for our purposes today, we'll go back to really the first robust active transportation plan the city had, the City of Winnipeg's active transportation plan in 2005, which led to the hiring of the first city's AT coordinator in 2007. And again, these are just some sort of milestones that we kind of wanted to highlight just to set the stage. There's a lot more in between. In 2010, there was a significant infuse of federal funding, a stimulus package, and a lot of the city's sort of first go at the AT network came then. Notably, the first protected bike lane in Winnipeg was the Assiniboine Avenue. Eric was involved in that. He goes way back. And then in 2015, the first pedestrian cycling strategies was adopted by council. And that really set the stage and set us on the path we're on now. And really sort of the network sort of started to take off then in 2016, where we started to expand upon that small protected bike lane network that we had at the time, and really started to ramp that up. And then the second position in our branch was filled in 2016. Fast forward to 2020, we continued to expand the separated network through multi-use paths and protected bike lanes. And then I have up there the neighborhood greenway pilot. A neighborhood greenway or bike boulevard, if we don't know what that is, that's a facility where bikes and cars mix on the street. They're for low volume residential streets that have low speeds. And the reason that this is a line in the sand for us is this time the province downloaded the responsibility or the ability to municipalities to set their own speed limits. And that's a key component of a neighborhood greenway in managing the traffic speed, is a posted 30K speed limit with traffic calming to self-enforce that. So we jumped on that opportunity and did a pilot for neighborhood greenways. That was successful, and we've continued to expand the neighborhood greenway network. And then jump to today, 2025. We are updating the pedestrian cycling strategies, and that should be before Standing Policy Committee and Council this spring. Approval to beef up the branch with 2 additional staff to handle the project management side of things. That's very, that's a job in its own. The city has lots of dedicated project managers and other groups, so we're getting that too. So we'll just talk quickly about the policy. Just again, this sort of sets all of our work and our context. So it was council adopted again in 2015. Essentially sets a 20-year vision for walking and cycling in Winnipeg. One of the key pieces of it is it calls for our infrastructure to be designed for people of all ages and abilities. So we think about that as someone maybe riding with a kid in tow, or maybe an older kid riding a bike beside them, or maybe it's a senior who's a little less agile than they used to be. So once we design for that sort of common denominator, that infrastructure's good to go for anyone and inclusive for everyone. That makes it much more comfortable and encourages more people to ride who might not otherwise choose to do so. And I guess the biggest thing this policy does is set out a future bike network. It's a map. We'll see one of them. Probably be hard to see, but it's sort of a spaghetti of the city of all the routes that are proposed. And then there's another map that prioritizes those. And then it even won an award in 2016 from the Canadian Institute of Planners. So that's kind of cool. So now we're going to talk about how we build stuff. How do we get it in the ground, and where does the money come from? So there's 3 sort of main ways that AT is funded. It's through the regional and local road renewal program. So that's around $100 million a year. That's if you see road construction, that's what's happening. The road is getting rebuilt in some fashion. There's again the pedestrian cycling program. That's the dedicated active transportation budget that we oversee. We'll go into that in detail. And then also provincial and federal grants. Again, there was that 2010 stimulus, and recently we were pretty happy to say we've been able to command around $3 million, just over $3 million in provincial and federal grants over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So that's been very helpful. So the regional local road renewal program, there are 3 main levels of road renewal, and then under these there's various different levels under these, but we'll just talk about it at this level. So road reconstruction, that's when the road is at the end of its service life, it's deteriorated, and it needs to be fully replaced. So it's all dug up right down to the dirt and put back. When these are scoped, these are great opportunities to add active transportation infrastructure. It's very cost effective. It's kind of almost like a drop in the bucket in terms, because you're rebuilding the whole road anyway. Then the next level is road rehabilitation. This is less invasive than a reconstruction. Only parts of the road base are dug up and rebuilt. So it's not a wholesale renewal, only parts. And there's scales of this. There's major and minor rehabilitation. So in these 2 instances, if, back to that map, if a road is identified in the pedestrian cycling strategies and then it's up for renewal, if it's one of these 2 levels, it gets the active transportation infrastructure. That said, there are what we call a minor rehabilitation, where it's much less invasive, and if the design of the bike lane needs to widen the road or do something very expensive and invasive, then sometimes it's not included in those. But for the most part, generally speaking, those top 2, if it's in the policy, it gets the AT, and it's funded by this program, not by the AT budget, but by this program. And then the final one there is a pavement preservation. These are much less invasive. The scope is smaller, the budget is much smaller. This is literally putting an asphalt layer over the concrete, or maybe there already was one done and it's milled off and another one's put back. This is purely to extend the life of that municipal asset, that road. And again, the scope is small and the budget is small, so if there's a line on the map in the policy and it's a pavement preservation, then the active transportation infrastructure is not included, because the budget is just not there to do it. Okay, this slide, this table, you might have seen this in the advertising for this event. This is Appendix H in the capital budget. It's near the end. I've forgotten the page. We can get that if you want to see it. I think it's on Councillor Lukes' website too. So this kind of sums up, outside of, again, that road renewal that we just talked about, outside of that, this is a sort of summary of all the AT funding. Excuse me. So at the top, we have the pen cycle program there, highlighted in yellow. We'll go into that next. Then the next 3 lines are renewal. So this is the sidewalk or a pathway that is at the end of life, it's deteriorated. This is the budget that repairs that stuff. Then we have the waterway crossing program. So that is the budget that is going to do the study to replace Oman's Bridge in Oman's Park in Wolseley. Then we have Osborne Street Underpass. This is a long-standing gap in our network and pretty high-hanging fruit, pretty challenging. So that money there in 2025 is to initiate a study to basically get from North Osborne to South Osborne in the vicinity of the underpass. It might be the underpass, there's other opportunities to look at, but again, high-hanging fruit. Elm Park Bridge, that's the bridge by the ice cream place, BDI. That needs some repair, so that's coming in 2028. We have waterway access. This is a budget that's managed by our parks group. They're not directly involved in this, they're not here today, but this is essentially what it says, access to the rivers via parks, docks, etc. And then finally, we have primary transit network infrastructure. This is a budget tied to the transit master plan that they received to add some active transportation infrastructure to promote trip chaining and connections to transit. So this isn't fully scoped yet, but one project we are looking at, is a path on Concordia Avenue to connect the Northeast Pioneers Greenway or the Raleigh Gateway corridor to Concordia Hospital or Panham Road.
Just one thing, I realize this is difficult to see, and because of all the ruckus, I didn't mention it earlier. You can go to my website, janicelukes.ca, and this presentation is posted there, and you can see it in more clarity. I apologize for that.
Chris, can you, just because there are people who have visual impairments, can you actually describe, instead of just saying look here, but actually describe what people are looking at?
Yep.
The accessibility of it?
Yeah, will do. Apologies for that. That's something I missed. Apologies. I'll do that, or stop me if I don't, please.
And color, there's people who are colorblind also, so if you just say it's yellow, that's meaningless. So to actually really describe it, please.
Okay, and we do have a
It's on my website.
okay. Councillor Lukes just said it's on her website, this presentation.
It's still color coded, so someone needs to go back and recreate all of it so that there's patterns to go with the colors. Thank you.
Okay, we can do that. We can't do it right now.
I know.
Okay, and just on that note, we do have a slide coming up that is color coded, so I'll do my best, but that it probably won't translate then to what you're saying. Okay, so that is that budget sheet. So $92 million over the 5 years, just to sum all that up. Okay, now we'll go into the pedestrian cycling program. This is the budget, again, that we manage in the active transportation branch. So we, every year that budget gets approved by standing policy committee, so by way of what's called an action plan. So we put it in an administrative report into standing policy committee, usually every September, and outlines what we plan to do, how we plan to allocate the budget that year. Sometimes we make changes in the multi-year budget. It's a very dynamic portfolio. We need to adapt to the situation on the ground and take advantage of opportunities. So we do, the budget does get modified even though it's a multi-year budget. Then that gets approved by standing policy committee, and then that goes forward to the formal capital budget approval. On the screen we have a few photos here. These are just some highlights of projects that this program has funded, really just to show that it does a variety of things. There's a picture of some painted pavement that we tried out as a traffic calming tool, so a smaller scale thing. Then all the way up to the photo in the middle is of the Northwest Hydro Corridor. That's a couple kilometer long, 4.5 meter wide, it's very wide, pathway. So just to say it funds a variety of things, but we we're always excited to get it in the ground and turn it into infrastructure. Julie's going to say something.
Sorry, I'm just letting you know that I'm shutting the questions down in 2 questions because we're at 100 and we're not going to get to all of them.
Yes,
We will, one way or another, answer them all, yeah. It might not be in this room, but we will.
No problem. Okay, this is a chart of the Ped and Cycle program. This is right out of the capital budget. This is pretty thick. It's got all of our budget numbers on it. I won't go through it all. And just keep in mind, these numbers are in thousands. Or another way to look at it is any number there, you add 3 zeros, and then that's the budget number. We debated going through this line by line, but I think I'll spare you from that. You can look this up, or it's in the slide, but maybe I'll just go through a couple highlights. Maybe the first one we'll talk about is the St. Matthew's protected bike lane upgrade there, 4 or 5 down. That's a painted bike lane, or the street has a painted bike lane that drops. It's a pretty high priority route for us, so this is something we've scoped, and so that project's going to come. We've got to do a design study and then get some funding in future years to build it. The next one is Maryland Sherbrooke Avenue upgraded to protected bike lane. You can see those are big numbers. It's $1 million in this year and 1.7 next year. So that funding is, we're doing a study to upgrade both those bike lanes to protected, but this funding is to pay, so we're doing the study of both Maryland and Sherbrooke, but the money is to upgrade the Sherbrooke bike lane. Maryland is unfunded, but we'll get to that. We've been picking away at this over the years. If you ride this, there's sort of segments of protected intersection, and we recently raised the bike lane on Maryland, south of Broadway. That's a challenging one. It's very tight there, so that was our solution we came up with there. The next one we'll go down to is Lage Twin Overpass. This is Lage goes over Concordia at this location. So when I was talking about that Concordia from the Northeast Pioneers to the hospital, this is the next segment of that. So this is part of this bridge project. We'll be connecting Panic or Concordia Avenue to Plessis. And that project is starting up in 2026. It'll span 2 construction seasons. The other one there, the Northwest Hydro Corridor, I mentioned that. We're doing phase 2 of that. The current path is from Leela, or from Church to Leela, and we're extending it to the north and to the south. Again, that's planned for this year, but might be next year. We're just working through the design of that. So, all that to say, by now you've probably noticed that there's a big gap there. There's no money in 2027, 2028, 2029. And yeah, I'll get there. Okay. So what I want to highlight with this, and there's a box around the bottom row there, that line item says various projects funding to be allocated. And that's unallocated right now, and that's on purpose because our policy, the pedestrian cycling strategies, is being updated, and that guides our work. And as part of that, we're reprioritizing our network, which then will feed into how we're going to scope this budget. So the way that this is going to get scoped is we're going to look at our high and highest priorities on the new map, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We also work with our Active Transportation Advisory Committee, and then of course we have our understanding of the network and the gaps and where we think we need to close those gaps and make those improvements. So that's kind of exciting. And the other thing I'll say is in the very bottom row there, 2025, we have $2 million there. In the last couple of years, we've been at that 2 million mark. There was one year it was even under 2 million. And then you can see up in 2029, 2030, we're up to $7 and $8 million. So that is, for this budget, is an unprecedented number. We have had 5 million in the past, way back, but those are big numbers compared to what we've been working with for the last couple of years. So that's very exciting. Okay, so the pedestrian cycling strategies update. We won't go too deep into this, but this sort of leads into, again, how we're going to allocate that money and the prioritization. So there on the right, there's just a picture of the cover. And this is, again, planned to be in front of Standing Policy Committee and Council this spring for approval. And then on the other side, there's a map it's probably pretty hard to see, and that's just the northwest quadrant of the city, but it's just there to highlight that this exists, and it's something for me to talk over. You can find this online. There's a URL, I think, on the next slide. But one of the things we did was looked at the network in a new way in terms of primary and secondary routes. So the purple there, and again, apologies for the color coding. The purple, maybe it looks darker than the green. The purple is primary network, and the green is secondary. There's not really a difference in terms of what infrastructure we'll build. That's based on the street context and what the need is. But the difference for us is the primary network is supposed to accommodate sort of those longer, more regional commuting type trips, versus the secondary network is then the neighborhood connections or the connections to that primary network. We also updated, there's an action table in here that has 90 some odd actions that are organized into some strategic directions. And then the big thing we did is reprioritize this network. We updated the network and then we reprioritized it. So now there's a map up. It's probably harder to see. That's okay, it just highlights that it exists. But this is our priority map. Up in the left corner there is the legend. So we prioritize our network in a 5-tier system: highest, high, medium, lowest, and low. So the key point to this is this prioritization is how we allocate that ped cycle program, that budget we just looked at. That helps guide that for us. But this has nothing to do with the road renewal. So if a road is up for renewal, and even if it has a low priority, that doesn't matter. It still gets the infrastructure. This is just to guide the AT budget. So the key point here is the highest and the high, and how does a route become highest or high? These are our prioritization criteria. So the first one, is it part of that primary network? We want to focus on that and help people get around the city and be able to choose a bike over a different mode, provide that opportunity. The next one is a gap in the network, and this is something new we added purposefully based on feedback. Every time we're out in the public, we hear this, that I would ride more, but my bike lane just ends. Or I would ride more, but I need a third of my trip is in mixed traffic, and I'm just not willing to do that. I'm not comfortable. So we're really trying to focus in and hear that, and we agree, we experience that too, and try and close those key gaps. So having this as a part of the criteria helps us focus in on that. Is the area located in a geographic area or is the route located in an area of higher poverty? The city a few years ago did a study of and produced a map of higher poverty areas, places that experience higher poverty. So this is partially a policy alignment thing. All city policies need to align as best they can with each other. But this one, we look at it a bit further than that, in those areas of higher poverty, there's going to be a higher proportion of people who depend on this infrastructure, as opposed to have the opportunity to choose a different mode. So this is an important one for us. And then in the safety piece, is there more than one historical bike injury collision? So we need to weave in the safety piece, so there are gaps we need to look at from that perspective. And then is it within 1 kilometer of the planned rapid transit network? There's 4 or 5 rapid transit lines that are planned in the future, and this is to help us start to set the stage for that, so that when those start to come in, we have a bike network that is starting to connect to those, so it provides that opportunity for people to trip chain or just get to the rapid transit. But the other sort of ancillary benefit to this is that a lot of those rapid transit alignments are on our big arterials like Portage or Main, and these are places, these are places where people want to go anyway, so it has that sort of dual benefit. So if you score well in all of these, you become a high priority route. So just to get highest and high priorities, here's a few that are on our mind. I forget the number, there's 9. 74. There's 74 highest and high routes. So here's just a couple, just again, that are on our mind. So I'll read them off. We have Cambridge Street, Sherbrooke, Maryland that I mentioned, Graham Avenue, St. Matthews Avenue, Pembina Highway, the remaining segments in Pembina, the North Winnipeg Parkway that was mentioned earlier, Wellington Crescent, Harrow Street, the Northwest Hydro Corridor, and some neighborhood greenways. I'm not going to list them all, but various neighborhood greenways around the city. Okay, so here's the map that I was mentioning. It's color-coded, but hopefully the lines all pop. It's probably hard to see and hard to kind of contextualize there. That's the bike map with some lines drawn over it. But the point of this is just so we can look at the network, or look at what we've been doing from sort of that 30,000 foot level, and just all the projects that we have done, that we're going to do, and that are ongoing. So again, I'm still going to explain the color coding here, but we'll have to work on our delivery of these maps in the future. The black is recent implementation, so in the last few years, this is stuff we've built. The red lines are construction projects that are starting up in 2025 or 2026. And the blue lines are a study that's either ongoing or it's going to happen. It's funded. It's not a future forecast. It has money to go ahead. And then I just wanted to highlight a couple of projects that are coming up as part of this. So we've talked about it a couple of times now. Number one is the North Winnipeg or Northwest Highway corridor. It parallels with Phillips. So we're running that to basically the developed extent of the city in the north and to where the corridor terminates at the Phillips Street Casino. Number two, again, is Sherbrooke. We're hoping to get this off the ground this summer. We're still in the design phase, so this might get pushed to 2026, but upgrading the rest of the Sherbrooke bike lane to a protected bike lane. Number three is the Pembina overpass of Avanoji-Mickina. That bridge deck is being renewed, so we took the opportunity to realign, do some lane realignments in there and carve out some more space for AT. So there's going to be a Maltese path on the west side, and the east side is going to have a sidewalk and bi-directional bike lane, so a full meal deal. And then it includes a bunch of connections to it. Number four is, again, that Lage twin bridge overpass with Concordia. We're connecting, so we're going to connect Plessis to Hannon and the Concordia Hospital there, and then there's some other path improvements involved in that project. And then number five here, I just circled the logo because I didn't know what else to do, but we're updating the bike map. So there hasn't been a new bike map updated and a print run done recently, so we're doing that, so we'll have all our new stuff on there and printed this spring, summer. This slide is basically just a legend for the last slide, just so this stands alone online. And then I'll end, we're gonna geek out a bit, and we're gonna just end with some cool stuff that we're proud of and that we do and we think are cool. So we'll talk a bit about accessibility related to bike lanes and crossing the bike lane, and then our winter river access. And then I'll just mention them here. I guess we realized this, but I didn't realize this until we put it on paper, but we haven't built a painted bike lane since 2014. I was going to say, sorry, I didn't catch it. Okay. I'm being told this matter. So, since you clapped, then we all know what that is, but it means we're achieving our goals of that all ages and abilities, right? And if you look around North America, other cities are doing it, they have them, and we have them too, but it just speaks to me that we're achieving that goal at the rate that we're doing it. And then the other one, the Assiniboine Avenue, PBL, not to be confused with PBR, that's for after, was built in 2010, and that was early in North America. Winnipeg had a protected bike lane before Portland, Oregon did. Okay, we're almost there. So I'll just explain these. There's two photos on the slide of transit stops with a bike lane bypass. And there's yellow surface treatments there. These are the detectable tiles. So these are intended for people with low-no vision or with mobility issues to cross the bike lane. In our collective, the industry, collective rush and politically to build protected bike lanes, we have now have a curb between the curbside access and the road, and that's a problem. If you have a mobility issue, or you need a mobility aid, or if you have low vision, that's a problem. So we've been working on our transit stop bypasses. So this is where people can cross from the sidewalk to the transit stop, and working on this detail of how this is built I won't go right into it, but how these tiles are aligned. We've worked with the community on this, and we have ongoing discussions with, we've been working with the Vision Impaired Resource Network on how these are working, and we continue to refine these. But what we found is that these have made their way. This one was built in 2017, this one was built last year on the left. What we found is that these are making their way into the best practice. The CNIB just did a report, and this transit stop, I don't think it's this one, it's the next one downstream, made it into that report. And these have also been looked at by British Columbia, who their transit group put out a manual for how to build these, and these are representative of what are in those documents. So this is something we've been working on and iterating, and I'm pretty happy with, but it's more to do, of course. And then this one, we're almost done. This is accessible loading zones. So this is similar to the transit stop. People need to cross the bike lane, but these are directly related to locations that have high volume of accessible loading. The one on the right is very similar to the transit bypass. It's a raised platform with the crossing of the bike lane. And then the one on the left is the loading is at pavement level. The guidance out there for the one on the left is to use a hatched pane to denote the loading zone. We decided that wasn't enough, so we flared out the curbs to create that loading zone space. The reason is, in our climate, this will be snow-covered part of the time, and the pavement or the paint wears out, and it's a maintenance issue. So we wanted to try and take it a step further, and so we raised and flared out those curbs, and then it forces the bike around and creates that safe loading space. We presented on this at the Transportation Association of Canada conference this year, and realized that, I'm not going to say other cities aren't doing stuff like this, but we realized that we might be the only place that has done something like this in a systematic way. So this is the new thing in bikeway design. This is going to come more and more, and we're looking to see how these operate and work with the community that uses them, and see how we can improve these as to be included in all our projects. And then Winter River Access, this is kind of a simple one. These are, there's photos of gangways there. They're aluminum ramps that are supposed to connect a dock to the shore. And so we've been starting working with the Forks and putting these in to provide connections to that Winter River Trail that the Forks curates. We have this bike lane that develops for a couple months of the year, so why not take advantage of it? So this is the city side of participating in that and taking advantage of that temporary route. So a small project, but kind of neat, kind of a unique Winnipeg kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to end and just sort of sum it up that we're, from our role here, I think we're pretty excited. There's a lot of new stuff and change. We have a new road safety branch who has hit the ground running. They're in their self-admitted planning and policy phase, but yet they're putting stuff on the ground this summer. We have unprecedented future AT funding. Again, the forecast is we're at $5, $7, $8 million a year. We've been at $2 for a few years. And then we have that new staff coming to help us, again, turn that money into infrastructure. So we're, there's a lot, I'm not going to stand here and say, there's not a lot to do. We do have a lot to do, but I think we're poised to start to get there. So I'll leave it there, and I guess we can do some questions. Thanks.
Start questions, I want to thank the public service for putting the presentation together. Like I noted, it's on my website, janicelukes.ca. You can get the presentation off the website. I do want to know one more thing. If you think about it, so we've got $37 million in our active transportation budget. We've got another 60 between road safety, between road renewals, bridges, plus we've got another 40 million plus in road safety, plus we've got funding. The amounts aren't identified yet because the road sections aren't fully engineered, so we've got millions in that. So we've come a very, very long way together with advocacy and working together. Do we want more funding? Absolutely. I think this is really, really important that you understand the city's funding model. I mentioned it before, but I was thinking about it a lot because Marianne Sorelli brought it up or had called out. The city, it's an antiquated method where we use taxation. We don't share in the revenue and the wealth. The association, the CFM, what is it, Canadian? Canadian Federation of Municipalities, mayors of all the big cities have been lobbying levels of federal and provincial governments to change that model for decades. It's not changed. I will note that in 2009, when the city got $20 million from the Conservative government, it's because we advocated hard on the Conservatives. We met with the finance minister, we met with Vic Taves, the local area minister, and we got $20 million. So working together with your support, we hope that you advocate other levels of government too. We've got an incredible team here to do the job. We've got already incredible funding. It's not enough. We heard how many high priority projects there are. We need more. We are here to help you. We are on your team. So now we'll do question period for probably 45 minutes, I guess, or till 11:45. We've got how many questions? Yeah, 101. So here's the deal. We're not going to get through 101 questions, right? So what I will attempt to do is answer the rest of them, post them to my website. And I'll notify Bike Winnipeg and Green Action or whoever too that they're posted, okay? But thank you very much for coming, and now we'll do question period.
This is all well and good.
Okay, we're going to do question period. If you do not want to do question period, I will end it right now. And I ask for your support to rein this in. I guess we're done. We're done. Thank you very much. Unless you want to rein this character in, we're done. Okay? We're here to answer questions. We're here to answer questions. So Julie, do you want to start with a couple questions?
Sure. So the first question, we're going to go more or less in order of what we received. So this is for Chris and Eric, and it's what specific barriers exist to immediately reducing the speed limit to 30 on waterfront? Other streets with playgrounds do, why not waterfront? Since waterfront is already listed on the priority list, what would it take to escalate the ranking?
Waterfront Drive. So Waterfront Road, like in the exchange. Highland Lakes. Okay, well, so the 30K again. That's back to the Greenway, Pike Boulevard thing I talked about, and that only works. So it's speed, but it's volume, right? And we need to hit a volume target to make that safe, right? It's about the interaction with the vehicle is about a slow interaction with that vehicle, but it's also about the instances of that interaction. So we look at 1,000 cars a day is the number that we try and shoot for. And that street, I don't know what it is, it's probably a lot more. And so then we need to do higher measures to get to that 1,000. So on that street, we might have to put a traffic diverter or something in. And then that's where it gets very sticky with the community, because not, when people want to drive where they want to go, and so we need to navigate that. So the diverter thing, that's, all of our greenways now have that volume that we want, and we're monitoring them. The next evolution is to get into that diversion and get into those streets where we don't have that volume. So that's sort of a next step, I would say, because again, it starts to get sticky with the community when we start to say you can't drive that way. And I know maybe that sounds absurd in this room, but that's the reality.
So can I add to that? So that's my question.
Next question. Well, we're moving on, sorry.
Point of order. If you're using Slido, you can explain to people how to use Slido, because we have prioritized the questions by voting for the ones we support. So if you're going to use Slido, I would suggest that you take a look at the priority from the community.
Okay, she was going in the order that we received them, so.
Question 5.
We're going to continue in the way that we have prioritized them. So, okay, we'll change, that's fine. Okay, so the next question then again is for Chris and Eric. In what year will the gaps in the city's cycling network be filled? Our patchwork network is so hard to navigate. In what year will the gaps in the network be filled?
Well, again, so I'll go back to that, adjusting our prioritization criteria and how we've heard that, and I indicated that already, and that being in that criteria bumps those gaps, and we all know them, we all have our gap that drives us nuts. So we're going to allocate funding to start to close some of those. So as you saw, the funding goes up over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and that's when we'll be really ramping up and starting to close those gaps and building more infrastructure and interconnecting the network.
Thank you. The next has been answered in a roundabout way, but we'll pass it to Amanda. It's what is the unacceptable number of deaths caused by drivers? And Amanda's already said that that's 0. We're working towards 0.
Yeah, number is 0.
Okay, I can answer that.
So here's the deal. I'll say it again. We have a certain amount of money to do this. We need your support to lobby levels of government to get more money. This stuff costs money. I don't know what's so hard to understand about that, but if we had more funding, we could fix it all next year probably. But we don't have the money. We don't have them. Anyways, it's about funding.
Okay, so the next question is for Amanda and her branch again. Winnipeg implemented the advanced walk signals on Broadway. Why wasn't this combined with a no right turn on red? When will we see no right on red within city limits?
So that's a great question. I talked a lot about the different policy documents that are in place. Right now, we've actually reached out to a number of cities all across Canada to learn about their right turn on red policies so that we can more appropriately apply them in the places we need them most. So that's a project that we are currently working on, and we hope to have an update shortly.
Questions are moving up and down the list because people are voting as we're talking, so I'm asking them and where they currently are as we get to the next one. So this, again, I think is for Amanda, maybe with some influence from Chris and Eric, but if Edmonton, Calgary, and Whitehorse, all winter cities, use the traffic calming curbs with no issues, why do we need to pilot them? Let's get them out now.
Thank you, we agree with that completely, and that's why we're putting them in 15 locations and more this summer. So, yeah, we're putting them on the ground this year. You'll see them on the ground.
I'm not sure whose question this is, but it's how will you address the constant impingement of pedestrian zones where downtown intersections routinely have cars blocking crosswalks during the walk signal? How will you address the constant impingement of pedestrian zones where downtown intersections are blocked by cars during the walk signal?
Especially city vehicles.
Yeah, what more enforcement? So the next question, if it's yours, perhaps you could just clarify. It says, why is this not being considered for emergency implementation? I'm assuming it's the road safety action plan. So why is it not being considered for emergency implementation with 18 people have been killed by traffic violence in 24?
Again, this is the staff we have based on the funding that we have. We want to do it faster, but we need the funding. And you've seen the amount of funding that we've got. We want more funding. Politicians are advocating.
We've had a request to have the questions asked differently because they can't hear when I'm on the mic, so I'll ask it on the mic and then I'll ask it again to you. So this is a Chris and Eric question. The east-west connection in the village is appreciated, but what's being done to make Osborne, Village and South Osborne north and southbound safe?
Yep. Osborne's a tough one. That handles, connects a bridge, like through Osborne Village, connects a bridge to an underpass, to Pembina Highway. So that's a lot of traffic a day, a lot of vehicles per day. One thing we have done is in 2018, somewhere in there, we did a design study for a bridge across the Assiniboine between Fort Rouge Park and McFadden Park. So if that ever gets funded and off the ground, then that's certainly going to be a different route for people to take. It would be an AT-only bridge, and then directly connect into the work we've done on River Stradbrook and on the Assiniboine.
Thank you. So this is a political question. How is delaying the report on a safer Wellington Crescent indicative of priorities as advocates?
So we saw that there were 72 top priorities, okay? We are working on the Wellington project. We're working on that project. And it takes analysis to put in the right infrastructure. So we're not going to put in the wrong infrastructure. We're going to put in the right infrastructure to keep people safe. And if that takes time, it takes time.
How much time?
We're working on it.
Stop delaying.
Okay, so it's, our next question is another political question. Has the city considered working with the province to update vehicle modification rules? I worry about lifted trucks putting small kids and cyclists at risk.
Works on a regular basis with the province. I know Councillor Chambers and I have gone down many times. We've got political liaisons with in the city. We've got bureaucratic liaisons within the city. So I think many of you know that the Highway Traffic Act hasn't been up. I'm going to say it's a scrambled egg version. It hasn't had a thorough review in a long time. I encourage you also to advocate with the province. We're working with the province. The more support we have from others, the better and faster things happen.
Ban the F-150, even stock trucks are too big.
So, the next is more of a comment than a question, and I think we've talked about it in talking about the funding model, but please stop putting speed enforcement revenue into general coffers and start using it to make physical changes that discourage speeding. Okay, our next question I know plays into the transportation master plan, so I think we'll go to David with this. If the goal is to improve efficient truck transportation, then shouldn't the priority be to make room by moving drivers to other modes? If the goal is to improve efficient truck transportation, shouldn't the priority be making room by moving drivers to other modes? So is that a political priority, or? We're trying to, is the answer, but yeah.
We're trying to move vehicles to other modes of transportation. We're completely renovating the transit system to deliver high-frequency transit this year. We're spending upwards of $100 million plus on active transportation. So we're really trying to move people to other modes of transportation.
It's a political question again, I think, here. So what is the biggest barrier to reaching short-term goals? Funding, politics, other? How can advocates best support reaching or exceeding?
Okay, I think I've mentioned it about 5 times today. The biggest impediment to moving forward is funding. So what can advocates do? Call your MP, call your provincial government. If you don't want to ask the money specifically for AT, ask them to change the funding model of cities. I don't know if any of you follow and understand what's happening with the housing crisis. For every house that goes in, there's another 150,000 plus that's required in infrastructure. So it's not just the city in this game. We have to reach out to our partners, which we're doing, which we're working on.
Okay, so we're going to go back to Amanda on an engineering question. If the goal of the road safety plan is Vision Zero, why aren't we adopting standards from places who have achieved Vision Zero?
So when we do work in road safety, we look for examples overseas. There are other European countries that have climates more similar to ours, but when we look at across Canada, Winnipeg is a very unique condition, and there's no Canadian city that has achieved that yet. So we're continuing to work on all sorts of initiatives, approach the problem from various different areas. If you recall the 5 focus areas, we were looking at that road safety culture piece, pedestrian cyclists, all the different areas of road safety to cohesively move towards Vision Zero. It takes time, it takes effort, and we're dedicated towards making that happen, but it is a challenging thing to complete, and I don't know any city to date of our size that has accomplished it yet.
Our next question is, rather than using separate road safety budgets, why not incorporate safety improvements as a matter of course during every road repair rehab? And the answer is that we've recently done that. So the budget is part of those, it is budgeted as part of those projects, but it's also got additional funding through the road safety program. Okay, so I think this is again a David question, but I don't know if you have an answer on it. Many cities have size restriction on logistics vehicles that ban large delivery trucks in city centers. When will Winnipeg modernize for its residents' safety?
That's a great question. We've been talking to the Manitoba Trucking Association, and we've got this Goods Movement Advisory Committee that's similar to the AT Advisory Committee. We're actively talking to them about trying to reduce the size of trucks, doing trucks after dark when there isn't the same amount of pedestrian and bike activity on the roads. It's hard to turn around such a sort of a set in their ways kind of discipline as trucking in Manitoba, but we are actively trying to push that forward.
Thanks, David. And I think our next question is for traffic management, which we don't have here, so by virtue of that, we'll ask you again, David. When there is construction, why do car drivers get a designated and signed detour route and cyclists don't? So they do, is what Chris is saying.
Yeah, that's the way it's been for many years.
So we are aware, many of us that work in public works or cyclists, we encounter the same things and we get surprised by the same lane closures that cyclists do. I myself encounter them on my ride home. I know Chris does. We send them into either a 311 report, or if we know directly who the project manager is, we can go and kind of bypass that a little bit. So contractors, when they do shut down a road, it is in our temporary traffic control guide that they are supposed to, if there is a protected or other bike facility there that they're affecting, that they're supposed to provide a detour. They don't, just let me answer. They don't always provide that, and Gary Avenue is one that comes up a lot. It's a very important route through the downtown for north and south, and because it offers bi-directional or two-way bike traffic on a one-way street, when you don't provide that, it's a very dangerous situation for the cyclists who are going against the flow of traffic. So we do try to monitor for that. We have one inspector that handles all of this in the city. So he is out there trying to enforce that on them. What we encourage, and I've told this to many other advocates, is if you see this, get the report into 311 ASAP. Flag it with a photo if you can, be very location specific, because it's a contractor or someone that is doing something that they're not supposed to, they're trying to skirt and get by with it. And so we need to know so that we can get our inspector out there so that they can do enforcement or do whatever is necessary to get that cleaned up. If it's a long-term closure, to make sure that the proper detour is put in place. If it's someone that's just parked a work truck because they're just going to be a minute, that they move it and get it out of there. So that is one thing that we do, and we encourage everyone to make sure that you're putting that out there. Just putting a tweet out there with the photo doesn't necessarily help. It doesn't get it to the city fast enough. It eventually makes its way through the 311 system. But go on the 311 website and go through their forms. I know it's a little tedious, but once you get into a little bit of a habit, as I know many cyclists who do report this do, get that out there, get it in, because we can then direct our resources to go and look at that and make sure that it gets fixed as soon as possible. But we don't know about everything that's happening on the road at all times.
I can speak briefly just from a customer service perspective. We are working with 311 to triage those accessibility through construction issues as a higher tier when they come to us in the public service. So those issues have been prioritized. But Michelle has something to add.
We
also have requirements in our contracts that refer to the temporary traffic control manual. But the requirement for contractors is that they have a plan for accessibility for all modes of traffic, pedestrians and cyclists specifically, including limited mobility persons. They are to monitor that all day, every day. They will have moderate interruptions, but this is a contractual requirement for them to have a plan that's reviewed and approved and monitored daily, complete with warnings up to fines for non-compliance. I will say that because it's a moving construction site, they have to keep on it, and they are required to. However, things happen during the course of construction where, as Councillor Lukes said, the signs get beat. But they are to monitor that, certainly make it clear up every morning when they show up and throughout the day. What was it? Oh, the thing to consider about that is it is a culture of safety, which we're pushing forward with our industry partners. And they're coming around, but it takes a push from the owners to do that, which we're working on.
The St. Mary bike lane right outside this building has been blocked for 7 years now by construction. I've reported it dozens of times and nothing has been addressed. Why has that failed?
One other thing related to construction. At night in the city of Winnipeg, things seem to get legs and move around. So signs do get moved. And I would say, why don't you call up the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association also? You can report it, but if you want, as an advocate, we're all trying to make this better, and if we work together and have good dialogue, I think we can make better progress.
Thank you, Councillor. So our next question is there...
St. Mary's bike lane blockage.
We'll get back to you on that.
We're just talking, we think it's related to building construction, but we're going to look into it, certainly.
Okay, Julie, I can just add quickly, this isn't a project that I mentioned, and it's not related to the closure, but the city just did a project called Center Plan, which was an all-encompassing plan of the downtown. It included some streetscaping stuff and some architectural guidelines, but we also did some bikeway design in that. So there are protected bike lanes designed for York and St. Mary that are currently included in a downtown renewal package. I was talking about that road renewal. So there's a number of streets coming up for renewal in the downtown, and York and St. Mary are included in that. So we're working through the design of that, and hopefully can get those bike lanes upgraded to protected over the coming years.
The next question is there any evidence that 30 kilometers per hour on residential streets would significantly increase travel time? And having worked on the reduced speed neighborhood pilot, I know the answer is no. If you want to look further into that, we do have a tool. If you go to winnipeg.ca/reduced speed pilot, reduced speed neighborhood, there's a travel time estimator that'll show you exactly how many seconds it will delay, and it's not much. It's still being worked on. I will move over to Danae now. Just a comment. It says, please use existing city resources to educate drivers to drive around cyclists. Specifically, please change share the road signs to a safe passing message. So you can see we're working on that.
I can add a little bit of context to that. So we are working with MPI and Winnipeg Police on some joint messaging around safe passing. There's also some new legislation coming out at the provincial level about safe passing distance, a minimum of 1 meter. And we are going to be working over the next many years on changing the way the drivers are taught to drive. Starting with early education, when 15-year-olds start learning about how to drive and do driver's ed. We'll be doing a big overhaul with the province, with MPI, on what that education will be. So it will take a culture shift for people to drive differently. It takes a long time for that to happen, but we are changing lots of the legislation in the short term.
That's not good enough. Drivers need psychological evaluations because they're operating weapons that can kill people.
We're going to move on to our next question now, which is a Chris and Eric question, and it is what progress has been made to make protected bike lane design, what progress has been made to protected bike lane design to remove new barriers for persons with disabilities as identified in the accessibility plan?
My answer to this would be what I presented on the slide. Maybe Eric has something else, but we recognize that yeah, we've created, you know, to create a safe cycling environment, we've made it more challenging with people with accessible needs to cross that bike lane. So now we're going to have to strike that balance. But what we did on River Stradbrook, that was the two photos that I showed of the accessible loading zones. We looked at high volume pickup and drop off locations for our Transit Plus department, and we chose 3 locations that on River and Stradbrook that had the high volume pickup and drop off. We recognize that people need to go where they need to go, and that's not necessarily a high pickup and drop off location, but we need to strike a balance. And in that project, that was something new. We recognized the issue, and this is how we tackled it in that project. Going forward, we're still working on how we're going to roll these out. The high volume location, again for Transit Plus, that's a key indicator, but it's probably not enough. Is there a per lineal meter interval that we need to look at? One of these per block? You know, we can't have them everywhere, right? And we still want the protected bike lane, so it's a real balance we have to strike. So this is something we're going to want to work with the community that serves and try and strike that balance of where we can improve this crossings in the bike lane.
Chris, so we don't have to create like very specific instances where persons with disabilities are welcome, and instead actually make it accessible across the board. Why do we have to
Well, there's a few reasons. We do have that, so that exists on Maryland, and all those transit stops and loading zone I showed, the bike lane ramps up to curb height, so that is a straight level crossing. But generally speaking, the protected bike lane has the monolithic curb, and then it's at curb height, and then it has the normal curb and gutter. If the road is being fully reconstructed, like I talked about, torn up to the dirt, then adding that is feasible. If it's not, and we're just adding that bike lane, then we're still using the drainage of that street that pre-exists, right? The roads are all crowned and they drain to the side, and there's catch basins all along. So for us to put, and the bike lane is always curb adjacent, so for us to raise that, all of a sudden we've changed the drainage pattern of the road, and we would have to put all new catch basins in. So while that is a high order facility and great, it's just would be super cost prohibitive for us to do it if we're not, again, reconstructing that whole road. So that's where we end up with that protected bike lane that, you know, we'll have in our mind.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to go over to Amanda now on slip lanes. So slip lanes turn a singular crossing into 3 crossings for pedestrians and cyclists. Why is speed prioritized over safety?
And it's something that we think about often and how we've designed our roadways historically, and we're in the process of developing when we do need a slip lane for some sort of traffic operations to use a smart right channel instead to slow down vehicle speeds. But you're right, if we can tighten up the intersections and reduce the turning radii, that improves safety for all. And so we're trying to look at the context that we design our roads for and making sure we're prioritizing movements for active modes.
What is a smart right channel?
Why don't you answer that, and then I'll build.
So a smart right channel is a newer design that's coming out across Canada. It changes the radius so that there's a clearer 90-degree angle for drivers to see a crossing pedestrian. It slows their entry speed and it provides a better sight line for them on the exit, so it improves safety while they enter and while they go through the channel and when they exit. So a lot of the newer designs that we're seeing on the roadway do incorporate a smart right channel to improve safety for pedestrians.
But it's still a slip lane?
Yes, it is.
I will say we're aware of this, and a lot of cities are removing them where possible. There are complex reasons why sometimes you can't, but in the River Stradbrook bike lane project, there were 4 slip lanes that bike lane crossed, and we removed 3 of the 4. So this is something that's on our mind and we're working on, and again, it's complicated for traffic volumes and stuff on high volume roads or other reasons, but where we can and when we can, we're doing it, and we've shown that in our most recent protected bike lane project.
Why are we prioritizing volume over safety?
Okay, so our next question, I guess, is a Chris and Eric question again, so you can take the mic back over to you guys. Why is there no safe place for my 10 and 7-year-old children to ride bikes to friends' houses in the West End when St. Matthew's could have protected lanes?
Why are you skipping the top?
So Chris mentioned in the pet and cycle program budget slide, there's a line item in there, St. Matthew's study. We recognize that is a facility that desperately needs to be upgraded to a protected lane. So that study is coming in the next couple of years. It will look at all of St. Matthew's through the West End. We'll also expand on it through some other projects that are in the West End. We have some plans for neighborhood greenways to build on the Ruby Banning one that cuts north-south through there. We're also going to be looking at Wellington Avenue in more detail in the future because it has some upcoming road renewals planned in some future budgets. So there will actually be quite a few things being looked at in these St. Matthew's and West End studies that will hopefully build out a full network in the next couple of years.
Why are you skipping?
We're going to it right now. So the question is, what would you like to say to the families of the people whose deaths you've deemed necessary over the next 25 years?
We're not deeming any deaths necessary over the next 25 years. We're not. For coming today and for participating in this. I'm going to attempt to answer the questions and post them later, not today, but there's a lot of questions. We're going to attempt to answer questions and post them later. I'd really like to thank the Public Works team